guys, welcome back to Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers and sex workers aiming to destigmatize sex work in the industry. So today we're still recording. This is part of our COVID mini-series since there was some demand to just keep going and roll with it. So that is what I'm going to do. And plus there's just so many untold and unheard stories in terms of COVID and how it relates to sex work and what kind of struggles we're all going through. So today I am speaking with Miss Kordella Kosor. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You know, you did a really good job there. Most cannot pronounce it. It's Kosor, yeah.
Kosor, with a rolled R at the end. I like that.
Kind of, yeah. It's a Croatian name, actually. So,
you
roll your R.
There you go. Are you Croatian or Eastern European?
My mother's family are immigrants, so I'm a first-generation Canadian on my mom's side. And I just like to say Yugoslavian because I'm mixed. I have family that way in Croatia and Serbia.
Amazing. And there's a huge battle between there. Tons of history over there. I just visited. Yeah, tons of like political history and war and all that stuff. But let's go into introducing who you are, because we were supposed to interview before you had left and before COVID, and then COVID happened and then made it everything impossible. And now you're based in Winnipeg. So what the heck?
Yeah, I am for the time being.
Yes. But it is good to finally virtually meet you. We're on Hangouts right now.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
Thank God for technology.
Yes.
But yeah, how would you like to introduce yourself? How would you like to define what you do? Who are you? Tell the world who you are.
Okay, so my stage name is Kordella Kosor. I'm a former Miss Nude World, hard body, which is a subtitle, and also a former Miss Nude World exotic dancer, best show.
Wow.
So that was the year that I competed. So I would be categorized as a pageant showgirl. So in stripping, so with exotic dance, for anyone that is not aware, there are different tiers to the industry. Not all places in the world have all the different variations, but in North America, primarily what has happened is most of the industry has gone to house dancers and freelancers. So these are the women that come into the club at night, pay a fee to the house, and that allows them to work the floor on a commission basis, basically. So for each individual sale they do to a customer, either as a table dance or a private show or a champagne room, they take a percentage. So these are saleswomen. Less known is like an old school option that has to do with more stage performance. So in America, they have pageant showgirls, which is what I am. They're feature entertainers that tour the country on contracts.
Wow.
And a little known fact, right? But we do more elaborate shows. So we'll come out in a handmade costume often. We'll have a theme to it. There's a bit more pizzazz, more thought. Hopefully several skill sets are demonstrated, and she'll throw out promotional materials. Typically, there's also XXX stars, so the actresses in porn, they also can feature, but obviously their approach is a little bit not less, but they are different. Their draw for the club is obviously selling their films. And for the most part in Canada, in Western Canada at least, there are still showgirls, which is a beautiful thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Just a little fun tidbit. Yeah. I did not know all that, so
that's really?
Incredible. Yeah, no, I didn't know all of that. Like I'm aware of the different exotic dance competitions, and I'm aware of some girls I know that definitely do tour around. Like I think like Cassius Shay, Alexandra, and stuff like that go down to the States and stuff.
It has changed over the years. So Showgirls used to be the industry standard. So I was made aware of this when I came into the business. There were women that were just exiting at the time that explained this to me. In the late 80s, I believe, there was a big philosophy change. The clubs were not as interested in the headliner being their business model. They all were starting to shift to private sales because that's more yield, right?
Right.
We could argue over quality versus quantity. It's neither here nor there. It's just that's what the shift started bringing into Canada, because it started in the States.
Right.
And Canada used to be all showgirls and all feature dancers. Like on the East Coast, like Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, where most dancers know it's now just hustling. Back there was huge elaborate productions for features, and it started with, I believe, like mini podiums being like run around in the club. Like literally, if you wanted a table dance, you couldn't actually get a private show with a girl. She'd just run around with like literally a milk crate and like do a little wiggle dance in front of you. I know it sounds so innocent and cute, but that's how it started, and now it's progressed to, at least in the West, we are still able to have contracts. So you'll come in with a contract for the week, but after commission and deduction, and of course your overhead as a contractor, really your income is dependent solely on how well of a hustler you are for private shows. So it's really changed a business model.
Right, it's really shifted. And you mentioned that happened more in the late 80s? And even now.
I believe so, because I started dancing right before I turned 19, and that was in like, showing my age here, damn.
Nothing wrong with that.
I will say 2009 is when I started getting into dancing.
Oh wow!
So late 20s, but yeah, that's what I was told, both by my agents and also the veteran dancers at the time. They're like, oh, you know, it's wonderful that you're so passionate about being a showgirl. You have such natural charm for being on a stage. You were born a decade too late, my girl. And I'm like, shit.
Oh yeah, I know, because I mentioned we were speaking about this topic actually with Cassius Shea, who's a feature.
Yeah, I've met her.
She's incredible. She's awesome. But I also mentioned a couple other episodes too, just like how there's been a shift too, that there aren't as many feature dancers anymore, and we were just trying to discuss like reasons why, as to what, like why that was, and everything is moving to the hustle, right? But
it's like there's a lot of commentary around why it has happened. And as I said, it was a business model that was a top-down decision. Clubs just had this eureka moment, and they're like, hey, instead of bringing in feature dancers that we have to pay a contract to, why don't we start, for a lack of a better word, grooming the next generation of dancers to normalize them paying us? And it becomes a snowball effect, because not just with dancing, but sex work in general is something that is strongly based on mentorship. You know, now there is a lot of industry, separate industry, dare I say, around like pole studios or like coaching or, you know, the franchise Strip and Grow Rich, you know, so there's all these things now that you can pre-purchase. So you have like, I guess, like a foundation going into the industry.
Right.
But previously, it was all you learn as you listen, and you learn as you watch, and you learn as you trial and error.
Right.
So it's changed a lot. I would say that as far as the term feature entertainer goes, it is used a lot, but I would not say that the majority of women that quote feature are truly headlining acts.
Yes.
It's been very watered down. So when you say you feature at a club, you might be a regular showgirl on the local circuit that comes through on a regular basis. You're a club favorite,
right.
which is still completely legitimate. But a traditional feature is a headliner with a long titles list, very, very elaborate costumes and props that tours half or full year, like a road girl. Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the definition, because I feel like a lot of people don't know all that information. So it's good to kind of get a refresher on that too. But it's kind of sad though too, because I feel like, the term feature, as you said, it's watered down now, and it's just far and few.
It's you only know what you know, and again, it's a learned job. There's a lot of artistry when it comes to being an entertainer, because you mentor under people, and you also kind of cut your own teeth on it, in the sense that you can come prepackaged, but like true showmanship is something very organic and unique, and it's hard to explain. You see someone on a stage, whether they're an exotic dancer or a burlesque girl or a belly dancer or a singer or a comedian, whatever, any in-person entertainer, and you can see when they are completely in their moment and like on the ball, so to speak. Like, you can just see when they're on, and it's such a special thing to watch. And I think that's partially where the real hook for the exotic part comes from, because to see a woman in her moment completely raw and like rocking it, and like her getting off on the moment, and watching a crowd get off on the moment, it's the hottest thing ever, and not many women can pull that off.
No, it's that star quality, but also like that whole magic around that performance.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's really hard. Like, I can't say that I've seen a lot of dancers like that lately, and I think it's definitely, and then there's nothing wrong with the dancers now, but it's just, as you said, like a shift in the business model.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah. But how did you get started? So you mentioned you started dancing when you were about 19?
18 in a dry bar.
Okay.
But 19, yes.
Okay.
I was out of high school and I was in college. I was taking general studies, and the plan was to block transfer to SFU. So I'm born and raised in the Lower Mainland in BC, Canada.
Awesome.
So I was in school, and I've grown up very blue collar, so I would say lower middle class, which there's no shame in that. However, it does have certain challenges when you're chasing post-secondary education and you're not independently taken care of. So I was at the time in school full-time. I had just moved out on my own with a few friends, and I was juggling multiple jobs, straight blue collar jobs. And one of my classmates, she saw me struggling a lot. And she had suggested, oh, hey, why don't you come to one of my jobs with me and just check it out? So I did. And it was at the Cecil on Granville Street in
Back
Vancouver.
in the day. Yeah, throwback.
Yes, exactly. I snuck in there underage.
I remember the Cecil.
Right? It was, the Cecil was a beautiful show bar. Like, there are two, to my knowledge, that are still of that caliber. And they're so gorgeous. They are like, that's glitzy. And I still have that like kind of seared into the back of my head, because that was my first impression, and that's the standard of dancer that is in the back of my mind too, right? So that was when I first saw to be a stripper. But I didn't get into it right away. I asked her questions, and I came to shift with her, and I hung out in the change room a bit. But it wasn't until my second term in college where I chose to audition, because one of my parents had quite a serious surgery, and suddenly I was challenged to, okay, so am I going to step up and, supplement their income while they recover, and still cover my own ass for my bills and keep on school and whatnot. So that's what actually pushed me into it. And I don't say that very often to people, because I don't want my story to be like, quote, ammo to be like ammo to like a swerve or whatever.
Right.
Like they'll conflate my story with something, oh, well, they didn't have another option. I'm like, no, there's always other options. But at the time, that looked like a very, very good option, because I'm like, hey, okay, I can actually pull this off.
Right.
So I don't often open up about that part. I generally keep it like, oh, I was in school and, it sounded super interesting, so I started, and I leave it there. I don't usually delve deeper, but you get to hear about it.
Thank you. And that's incredibly insightful and also really intimate for you to share. So thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sure our audience would appreciate that.
I think a lot of women, again, I think now, because we live in more progressive time around decriminalization of sex work across the board, I feel that it's a safer time to be open about this.
Right.
But I think at the same time, people that are in sex work, like man, woman, trans, any type of sex work, even, depending on the situation, we can sometimes sanitize our stories, because again, we don't want it being co-opted by like a political agenda, right? So that's all.
But thank you for sharing that. Really, really appreciate that. I think it's really important. And you said you felt you can do the job. What do you mean by that? Did you have any like dance experience, or it's just like you saw your friend doing it and you're like, I can do it?
Oh, okay. What are the requirements here? I very much am a tomboy, so to have a sense of comfort with my own body, I had from a young age. I wouldn't say I was an exhibitionist. That's the wrong word. I've always been very, very comfortable with my body. I think to shame a woman around nudity it's ridiculous to me, because nudity itself, to shame someone about their body, I think it's such a flawed argument. So there was that. So I had nothing fundamentally against being nude in a venue. I thought that was very European. That's my background. I thought it was cool.
Right.
I played sports growing up, so I was watching the women, and again, there was a really, really high standard of fitness, like a very, very, very high energy shows. It's changed over the years, but again, when you're doing a proper show as a showgirl, you come out with huge energy, and it's almost like a crescendo, because the songs should dictate the mood, the theme, what you're trying to convey, your attitude. Like it's supposed to culminate and then go down to your last song. So I was watching this, and the women would come off stage completely drenched in sweat. I'm like, okay, this looks good. I can pull this off. I think I can do this. I literally was like sitting by the DJ booth or by the bar, like trying to be like low key and watch my classmate when she would do her show. And like, she definitely was working for it. But again, when you see something completely authentic and raw and wild and hot, you leave the stage with your money's worth. So I'm like, okay, this I can pull off. This is cool.
Wow, that's you have such elaborate descriptions, but you paint a great picture, which is super super important when it comes to like showmanship and just being a great overall performer. Because I've said this in other episodes too, but like there's a big difference. Like people think like, oh, I could pole dance or I can, I could twerk and stuff like that.
It's not about that.
It's not about that.
That is not the main strength that you should be coming from. Like that is only one component that puts you together as a performer and something marketable. Trust me, I've spoken to enough men over the years. Women are completely enthralled by pole tricks. Men are impressed, but when the woman has bigger guns than him, he's like, step back a bit. It's the perfect combination of strength, poise, beauty, sensuality, raw sex appeal, some spunk, and being happy. Being happy on a stage, an actual smiling woman that is enjoying herself, that's what gets a crowd happy.
Right. It's a total package deal, which you have, obviously. For sure. Can you tell me how...
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Can you tell me how you got into the whole pageantry with dancing?
For sure. So when you're a showgirl, one of the ways that you kind of command a higher show price is they'll start you... It's a negotiation, right? Because traditionally you have an agent representing you because you're a subcontractor or contractor. So you go through a middleman, that's your booking agency, and that is standard. So the idea is that as a performer or an entertainer, same as a singer, same idea, same as a stand-up, they start you at a discretionary rate, your show price, and based on how well and how quickly you can progress, if you want to, you can get raises. And one way to get a raise is to do contests, which is how you demonstrate to a crowd, to a panel of judges and your agents and the club owners that, hey, she's worth her salt. Which is pretty awesome. It's changed over the years, but the idea behind a contest is you bring your best and you really do command the crowd and hopefully you place. But no matter what, being in the contest itself helps your career.
Totally.
There's other things that help. Quality costumes, which demonstrates not only you being good at what you do, but you're reinvesting your money back into your job.
Right. Commitment.
Commitment. Also, there is showmanship in itself because women love beautiful things. So some of us are a bit more competitive that way than others. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Body. So it is... As a performer, you need to take care of yourself. That's subjective, of course, but eating well, trying to keep your health up, clear skin. A lot of women choose to be augmented. You don't have to be, but the downside too, being in the entertainment industry, again, an actor or a model in general, sometimes the pressure to look the part really skews your self-concept. So some people choose to do that, and more power to them.
Right.
I'm trying to think of other things. Also it's who you know, right? So there's the aspect of networking and schmoozling that comes into play. Crowd response, if you're a favorite that way. Also work ethic, if you're reliable, dependable,
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of requirements there. But it almost sounds like a bodybuilding competition almost, or like a bikini competition. They have all those pageantry aspects of it too.
Yeah. It's certain pageants. I can only speak to the ones that I've been in. but certain pageants literally have scorecards. So it is subjective in the sense that, you know, if you're scoring under the category of creativity, that can be subjective, but you know, the scorecards will have different categories: poise, showmanship, athleticism, crowd appeal, sensuality, costume. You know, so it can be like measured that way. Yeah.
Right. Can you tell me about your experiences with those competitions and the titles you swept? Like, that's amazing. Yeah, sure. That's so incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it's not something I talk about a lot because it's like I love doing them because, again, that is one way of saying, hey, I'm demonstrating that I belong on a stage because I have showmanship and I can get a crowd going. Like, totally. To me, it's rewarding in itself because I have loved the career. But yeah, I can speak to some of the contests. So I have done in BC, I did my first rookie competition, and I did some like bikini contests when I was a baby stripper to get into it. I've done Miss Nude West Coast previously. I have done Miss Nude World, which has been held across the world, but currently it is American-based. So the Miss Nude Worlds that I've gone to, the pageants, it's a series of pageants that like culminates in the final contest of the year. Right. But they're held all over the States. I believe in past years they have been recently held in Australia as well, but it hasn't been in Canada for like at least a decade. I know that.
Oh wow.
Canada has its own pageants. There has been a Miss Nude BC, but it hasn't been held for several years. In Alberta, where showgirls are still used as a model, there's several pageants, like Miss Nude Northern Alberta I've done in previous years. There used to be a Miss Nude Showgirls, a Miss Nude Diamonds, and those are chain clubs. What else? I'm thinking Miss Nude Manitoba, Miss Nude Winnipeg. Those are also pageants that happen yearly. So I'm looking forward to those. As soon as we're able, I'll be gracing those stages for sure.
Totally.
And I would say I'm looking forward to them because the caliber of dancer out here is still very strict, I would say. Like the agency in Manitoba, they still have a very strong image of what a showgirl is supposed to be. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, there's also a pageant series, Miss Exotic Dancer United States.
Yes.
And as I said, similar to Miss Nude World, it's held across the country at different times, but I've also competed and won in that.
Wow.
So it's fun. Like there's contests in Europe as well, and Australia being part of the Commonwealth, they have a Miss Nude Australia where there's heats in different states for them,
right?
And also the chain clubs host their own like in-house contests. So yeah, it's pretty fun. If you're on the pageant circuit, you love what you do.
Yeah, definitely shows, and it sounds like you love what you do. So very evident in that.
It's fun. It's I don't necessarily, like, looking back, there was a time that I briefly freelanced exclusively, but if I had a choice, I love being a showgirl first. So yeah, that's just me though.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier you can't wait for things to reopen. Obviously, because we're still in quarantine, we're still, things are slowly opening up in BC, but I wanted to kind of segue into the whole COVID topic, which is still rampant and still going on. But did you want to tell your story too? Because you were living in Vancouver And you've just temporarily relocated to Winnipeg. So tell me about that.
So I was in Vancouver doing some school last year. And my background is I'm doing a healthcare stream.
Okay.
So when this started developing in international news, we all took notes. One of our teachers actually encouraged us to go onto the WHO website and review what it actually means to be categorized and qualify as a pandemic. So there was a discussion in class. I think anybody in healthcare saw the situation developing and kind of took, I don't want to call it like this, but we took kind of bets how it was going to play out.
Oh my gosh.
In my class. As students, we were like, okay. So that's how it happened. And I was talking to several friends who were in the States at the time. Several teachers that I keep in loose contact with were in the States, and America took a different reactive approach to this, but certain countries were far more proactive, and it shows now, obviously. My roommate, she was actually on tour featuring in Australia.
Oh wow.
So I was in pretty regular contact with her. I was trying to urge her to follow the embassy's information to the T. And actually what played out for her was, the clubs started thinning out for customers, and then they shut down, and she isolated herself waiting for her flight.
Right.
She almost didn't get on a plane because the flight she was canceled. So she scrambled to get on a plane.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Cannot imagine that. Yikes.
Yeah. When you travel internationally for work as a dancer, many of us do. I feel like moving forward, we should keep in mind our home country's policies around travel.
Right.
Post COVID. So that's something, definitely. And what ended up having me decide to come to Winnipeg was, as far as my schooling went, I had actually toyed with transferring to U of W.
Okay.
I had actually toyed with that last summer.
Oh, so even pre-COVID, way back when, it's an idea that you had. Okay.
Yeah, precisely. It wasn't... I wouldn't say it was under the best of circumstances that actually had me kind of catapult into moving, but,
right.
It had already been a discussion I had with my family and a lot of my regulars, and they were enthusiastic because Winnipeg is, for me, it's a beautiful city. I've had lots of positive memories here over the years, so I had looked at U of W and U of M prior. As soon as my school program decided to move the rest of the term online, I just made the decision. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be potentially trapped in Vancouver twiddling my thumbs. I'm going to get gone while I still can get gone.
That's good that you're proactive about that decision too, instead of just waiting, right? So
yeah.
And have you been to Winnipeg before for work and stuff too? So you're already kind of familiar with the city. What it has to offer.
I was familiar with it because it's one of the last provinces to really have a strong showgirl influence. So I have had very good relationship with the agency here.
Great.
And I've kept in touch with my customers over the years here because that is something. One of the wonderful social benefits of being a showgirl or even an exotic dancer is you do end up building legitimate relationships around the job, and if you so choose, outside of work. So I've actually come to call several of my long-standing customers true friends. So they know about my school and my personal life. So they're like, oh yeah, come out, we'll set you up if we need to. So it's been good. It's been a good transition. I got out here, and I've been social distancing. Like, I mean, when you crossed the border, the RCMP greet you, and they're like, "Hey, just so you know," and I'm like, "Yes, I'm very well aware, and I will comply." So I quarantined for the 2 weeks, and I've been social distancing since. And I think in the last week, the province of Manitoba has started to open up in phases. So
Good.
I'm practicing proper health precautions. I know from school on top of what is recommended to the public, and it's been good so far.
That's awesome. Was it difficult for you to transition from Vancouver to Winnipeg at all, or was it easier than you thought, or you're laughing?
Again, it's been closed, right?
Yeah.
So my time here so far has been mostly indoors. But if I could turn the screen around, I'd show you beautiful, beautiful skies. Not a cloud in sight. It's beautiful here.
That's amazing.
I love it. The prairies is amazing. It's wonderful.
So you made a good choice in moving out.
I think so. I have good vibes with it, and my roommate, she's amazing. I count her amongst my found family members, right?
That's
like,
incredible.
because with dancing, there really is a camaraderie and sisterhood. So she is definitely a sister from different mister. And we have a strong support network here, so it's good.
That's really, really important to have that. In terms of British Columbia and like Manitoba, how is the support network over there for that? Like, is the government over there doing anything differently? Because I know we were mentioning off the air earlier before recording how BC has like the one time payment of $1,000. Does Manitoba have anything like that as well?
So I can't speak to this overly much because I'm not the most informed, right? So I don't want to put like false information out there, right? But as far as I know, there are a lot of outreach programs. So along with healthcare, I have like some working knowledge of social service and outreach. So there are a lot of outreach programs here in the city for people in need. As far as provincial relief goes, I am not aware of any like relief program specific. I was going to say, as far as rent goes, we did receive a statement from our rental company saying that during this time, if your lease was planning to be renewed, there was a freeze on interest, like, increase. But past that, it's quite interesting because in Manitoba, like individual landlords, they're banned from like there's a freeze on increasing rent. But if you rent from like a corporation, it's not so cut and dry. So we are consulting with the RTO here just for our information. I am unaware of anything further at this time.
Okay. If I hear anything, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
At least I'm sure the rent is probably a bit cheaper there in Winnipeg, at least.
Girl, that was a big reason I thought about this for the rest of school. Yeah.
A stark difference.
Winnipeg. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, okay, so Vancouver, it's like apples and oranges, right?
Right.
Vancouver and Winnipeg are both very artsy, very foodie. Like, there's great social community here. But I personally would say Vancouver's more of a white collar, no collar, whereas Manitoba is mostly a white collar, blue collar type of place.
Interesting.
And, that's just socio-demographics, right? So, I mean, I'm very comfortable in that type of environment. Like, I'm born and raised as a city rat, but my heart is in the country. So, beautiful place to go camping, stay outside. Like, I love to go quadding, 4x4 in winter. I've gone skidooing a lot. So, I mean, as far as like the lifestyle out here, I enjoy it, and also the cost of living is far more stable,
Right.
especially if you're a student or a young family. So I think there is appeal to being here. Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
I'm so glad you're settling in nicely over there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know, like, obviously nationwide things are still closed, but actually, well, in BC things are going to be opening up pretty soon here on Tuesday for
Yeah.
phase 1. And the same, is it the
Mhm.
same thing for Winnipeg too? I think it's nationwide.
So,
No.
well, so as far as public health goes, in terms of reopening the economy with COVID, so each province individually controls their mandates, right? Mm-hmm. So in Manitoba, I think for about a week, they've been allowing patios with like appropriate capacity and also like fully ventilated. So, you know, with the good weather, a lot of people are itching to go out. And I think the majority of people understand that it's a social responsibility to have proper hand hygiene, to cover your face. If you're feeling unwell, not to go out, to stay home, to distance. So I think people are being responsible, and, you know, like basically meeting the situation where it's at. So for myself, for example, I don't feel comfortable having people come to my house per se, but if they want to get together on a patio, that's something I'm okay with. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like things like that. As far as bars go, bars are not in phase 1 because they're obviously not essential. I think they might start to roll out in phase 2 in BC. I don't know. I received a text from like a general manager of one of the clubs in the Lower Mainland because they and I keep in touch, and they're like, hey, you know, we're open this date. And I'm like, great, congratulations. I'm nowhere near the Lower Mainland, so all the best to you. But out here, I think bars will be phase 3. I'm unsure. Honestly, for like my self-care practice, I watch like the national news and I watch the international news every few days. Yeah. But I'm not glued to the news because I know that mental health is super important. So I want to stay very like grounded in the information I take in.
Of course.
Yeah.
Take everything with a grain of salt, but yeah, like I feel like strip clubs and stuff and bars, I think that would be either phase 3 or phase 4. It's like very much TBD in the air.
Again, it's an unessential service. Yeah. Essential for people's income. I understand that. That's not what I'm getting at. But as far as a public health thing, it's an unessential service and it's entertainment. You know, I mean, I feel that it is staggered in an appropriate way. Like, as an entertainer, yeah, I get it. It's shit. Yeah. You know, it sucks. But, you know, as a private citizen and also, again, a student in healthcare, I'm like, you know, this is measurable. It's achievable. Be patient. This is necessary.
Yeah, totally. 100% agree with you on that one. Things will open soon, slowly but surely, but we all have to take responsibility and, you know, be responsible. Otherwise, nothing's going to open.
You know, that's bars, but I mean, one of the things about being a sex worker, whether you're a dancer or a content or escort, what have you, you tend to be very resourceful and adaptable and flexible in your negotiation and how you command an income. So, I mean, it's stag season. I can see a lot of outdoor like events happening.
Totally.
You know, boating, you know, go to Kelowna. You know that center of gravity attracts so many people in the summer. It may not happen this year in a formal way, but August long will be huge out there already. I know that for sure.
Guess we'll just see what happens, right? Yeah. Just see how things unfold. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we go into some Q&A? So I have a few questions on my side, and I know that you have some from your clients as well. So why don't we go to the few that I have for now? What are your plans for like the first thing you're going to do post-COVID?
Okay, so is this a question around work or personal life?
It wasn't specified, so if you wanted to answer on
sorry,
both, you can.
I always try to qualify the question, so I'm like, okay. I am very health conscious, so I enjoy going to the gym or the studio at least 2 times a week, so I would very much look forward to having that part of my routine. But quite honestly, like, I wouldn't mind going to like an amusement park or something like that, because I don't know, I'm into that. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so who knows, maybe jump out of a plane. That's been on my list for a couple years.
But it crosses that bucket list.
Like, you know, I want to do fun stuff, right?
Totally. What are your favorite props to use on stage?
So, like, costume prop or, like, apparatus?
It could be either or both.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I would say for myself, I have used a coffin before for, like, more, like, theme costumes for a vampire, or, like, what else? Like, I did a devil show a couple years ago for a contest. That was awesome. I had a carpenter, like one of my customers is a carpenter by trade. So he built me an old school type of coffin, and I got a smoke blowing out of it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like Aleister Crowley-ish, very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's that. So, like, I personally like theatrical props, but a lot of girls, like, use circus apparatus. So, like, a lyra or tissue or, like, Roman rings, stuff like that.
Right. I need to see when shows when things open up again.
Oh, yeah. Well, incredible. I'm not sure as far as the Lower Mainland goes. I know the Caddyshack will contracts for me still, because they're like a show bar, but I'm not too sure about the other clubs. Like downtown, it's pretty like local circuit girls, I think.
Yeah, depending on which club you're in, for sure. Yeah, it's different. And the last question I got here: are you going to move back to Vancouver or elsewhere after COVID?
As far as my short-term plans go, I will remain in Manitoba as, like, quote, my home base. So in an ideal situation for me would look like the borders reopening and, you know, safe to travel internationally. Right. I had had some contracts in the works in Australia for myself, so I would like to. Yeah, I know, right?
Such a bummer. Damn.
I know. But stay positive. Manifest that shit.
Exactly.
I would like to still call Winnipeg my home for school purposes, but when I can, I would want to tour internationally. Yeah.
Awesome. Hope to see you on the stage.
I'll visit Vancouver, you know.
Exactly. How about, you mentioned you had a couple questions on your end as well?
I had several questions around, like, tour dates or how I'm doing during this time of, like, physical distancing. So I'll speak to the physical distancing first.
Sure.
So I myself, I feel I'm doing quite well. I'm a realist. So once you accept that so many things about this are out of the individual's control, I brought it down. Like, I looked at it from the big picture. And then as far as how I can control my life, I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is something that I can't stop, but I can choose to react in, like, the best way for myself. So I've been practicing a lot of self-care, being purposeful with my nutrition. On days that I do feel a little down or lethargic, I try to laugh a lot, because I think laughter is wonderful, very good for, like, mental health and just, like, your mood overall. So I'm doing well. I think resiliency is something that you kind of grow into. And that's actually a good thing about being a sex worker, because we as a group of people are extremely resilient and adaptable. So, making the best of it. I am selling some custom content for clients.
Okay.
I'm not on OnlyFans, and from what I hear, that's actually turning out to be like not a good thing for girls right now. So
it's very oversaturated at the moment.
Yes, yes, and also like because I'm on different dancer chat boards, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of discussion around how accounts are being shut down, money is not actually being deposited properly. So, like I got my ear to the ground. I'm offering custom content. So like a very one-on-one boutique experience to like respectful customers that approach me. Mm-hmm. So, it's doing well. I consider that, I'm very lucky to be able to do that. So I'm blessed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I'm doing. And as far as work goes in future, again, it's been disappointing because I finished my term in Vancouver and I came out here. And prior to having the COVID outbreak, I had a completely booked schedule for touring. And there's been, as I mentioned previously with all the pageants, mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's necessary, of course, for people's safety, but unfortunately, a lot of the pageants have been canceled for this year.
Right.
So I was scheduled to go to Indiana for Nude Popping, which is an annual feature competition at the Ponderosa Sun Club. I was going to go to the feature dancer competition in like Northeast USA with my roommate Mia Nebula. That was a bummer because I was really looking forward to it. Actually, the club that hosts it is like on par with what I remember the Cecil to be. So I was itching. Yeah, I was so itching to be on that stage. They have like 3 poles. They have crossbars for chin-ups and trapeze. They have like a hoop. I was like, that upset me. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So.
That's so shitty. Damn. Well, honestly.
Yeah, but.
Again, I hear you.
What can you do? It's okay.
Yeah.
It's, what can you do? Like, there's next year, of course. Yeah. And so with dancing, for people that are listening, there is the ED Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada, that's held every year.
Right.
You mentioned Kasia Shea. Mm-hmm. She went with us last year.
Yes.
She repped for Canada, and it's basically the culmination of all industry members every year. It's an expo and showcase and awards and party. It is big. It is like everybody in the industry goes, owners, agents, support staff, like media, obviously entertainers, like everybody shows, and it's an amazing party. I've gone several years.
That's awesome.
But it is being postponed for the time being. Everybody's still optimistic it'll happen this year, so I hope that it happens because it'll be a very big party.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Just think of it like this year's just on hold, right? Just on pause.
Yeah. Like, 2020 is a write-off.
Yeah.
Let's keep it positive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did your regulars have any other questions about your well-being or anything else to work? You said tour dates.
Well, yeah, I'll open up about this. So I have spoken mainly about like school and work, and my like tour bookings and whatnot. I had recent news that my father actually needed to be hospitalized.
Oh no.
It's unrelated to COVID. It just so happens to be right now.
Right.
That's been hard because not to be able to be there for him physically.
Yeah.
That's been trying to me, but I'm in communication through my mom.
Okay.
And he definitely is receiving great care.
That's important.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was the best decision. As far as people requiring emergent and urgent care right now, like, everybody is encouraged, if you don't need to be in a health center, don't go. But
Right.
it was required. So, I mean, he's where he needs to be, and I remain optimistic. I've had several customers be super supportive because, yeah, like, they're like, well, if you need anything, if you need to talk, please let us know. Don't feel that you're alone. You can reach out. So, I mean, people form their own community systems. Happy that they're in my life.
That's amazing. That's so incredible. Well, fingers crossed. I really hope he gets better. Wishing him a speedy recovery.
Thanks. Yeah.
Family stuff is always very, very difficult, but hopefully we'll just get through this together. So, and it's great that you have your loyal fan base to be an extra support network too for you.
Yeah, and it's reciprocal too, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think it's like a little bit more mysterious. The general public doesn't see that side of dancing, but when you've known a customer for multiple years and they genuinely have a bond with you, like, you do end up caring about each other, right? So you check in on each other, or you offer support, or like you keep them grounded, or like call them on their bullshit, or like joke with them, or like, it becomes a very real relationship, obviously with appropriate boundaries still for safety if that's applicable.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely blessed that way.
So there's a beauty around it too, though.
Yeah, it's really hard to define it because, again, there is so much artistry when it comes to being an entertainer. Like, not all women are created equal. Not all dancers are the same. Like, one of the biggest battles that dancers try to advocate against is, okay, we're not one-dimensional people. We're not all cookie cutter. You can't say that I'm like her, or I'll allow this, or so-and-so said this about me, so it must be true. Like, you can't put that on another human being.
Right.
So, when it comes to individual relationships, like, I am not the same person to everyone I meet, and they are not the same person to me, right? So, like, it's that individual connection, and, some relationships are deeper than others. Some are a little bit more superficial, but it is what it is. Like, yeah, it's just life.
On that note, where can we find you right now?
For sure. No, for sure. Okay. On Facebook, I am under Kordella Kosor.
Okay.
On Instagram, it is Miss_Kordella Kosor. And if you would like to request or approach me for custom content, just DM me either on IG or on Twitter as well under the same handle. And I will give you my email and we can go from there.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to plug all those links in the podcast notes below. So people people can contact you there for sure. But it was such a pleasure to finally meet you and to have you on the show. You have
you as well. You're super bubbly. I love your energy, babe.
Thank you. It's I think the sun is giving me like all that energy right now.
Good. That's a good thing.
It's a beautiful day here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and edit this and then maybe have some fun outside. Social distancing, of course.
Yes, nice.
But would love to reconnect with you if you're ever back in Vancouver again, so don't be a stranger.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I have plans to hopefully visit in the fall.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And keep us up to date with your tour dates and stuff, too. I definitely want to see live.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Depending on when things do open up again, I plug them on my Twitter and IG. So, yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Miss Kordella Kosor, for being our wonderful guest today during our COVID series. And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe, and share, guys. Strip by Sia on Instagram or my personal Sia Steph. And we'll catch you guys in for possibly another episode for the COVID series next week. I'm just kind of rolling with it, so may or may not see me next week. But thanks again. And that was Miss Kordella Kosor. Thanks for joining us, guys. Sorry, the sound quality is really, really bad. We're using Google Hangouts. We are going to have another fun episode for sure next week. See you guys. Thank you. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, produced and hosted by Steph Sia, aka Kimchi.